Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd, your provider of belief on demand.
Today isn't about passive listening. It isn't about, sitting back and just letting information wash over you.
No, not at all.
Today is about transmutation.
That is a big word to start with, but it absolutely fits. We're initiating a briefing, and I really want to set the ground rules right now for everyone listening. We are not doing a standard podcast episode.
Not even close.
We aren't just going to summarize a book and, tell you if it's a good read for your next vacation. We are taking a text that might sit dusty on a shelf in a university library, specifically Chapter 5 of Lauren Berlant's Cruel Optimism, and we are treating it like a live wire.
A live wire. I like that.
We are acting as architects. We're here to build something you can actually use, a framework you can apply.
And the blueprint for today is, well, it's heavy. We are dissecting a chapter titled Nearly Utopian, Nearly Normal. And it does this by analyzing two Belgian films from the late 90s by the Dardenne brothers, Rosetta and La Promesse.
Okay, now I can almost hear the brakes screeching for some people listening. Belgian films from the 90s. Is this a film theory class?
Right. Did I tune into the wrong show?
Exactly. But no, we promise. We aren't doing a film review here. We are looking at these stories because Berlant uses them as these incredibly powerful case studies.
They're scalpels, really. She uses them to dissect something terrifyingly relatable to every single person listening right now.
Which is?
She uses them to explain why we cling to lives that are actively hurting us.
It's an analysis of the rut.
Yes, it's all about the rut. It is about why we stay in bad situations, bad jobs, bad relationships, bad habits, and not because we're stupid or weak or, masochistic.
No, it's something much deeper than that.
It's because the alternative looks like total annihilation, like falling off the edge of the world.
It's the logic of survival when the world has just stopped making sense. So before we get into the heavy machinery of the philosophy, and believe me, there is some heavy machinery here, we need to set the scene.
We need to build the atmosphere.
Where are we mentally for this deep dive?
We need to transport ourselves to a very specific place. Berlant calls it the world of post-Fordist affect. But that's academic code.
Okay, let's translate that. Let's make it visual. So if you're listening, close your eyes for a second. Let's paint the picture.
Imagine a gray, industrial Belgian landscape. And this isn't the Belgium of, chocolate shops and medieval squares you see on a postcard.
No Bruges.
No Bruges. This is the Rust Belt.
I'm picturing concrete, a lot of gray.
Concrete, yes, but also mud. So much mud. It's damp. It's cold. We are in trailer parks that are literally falling apart, or, construction sites that are half finished and just abandoned.
And the sky is just this permanent shade of slate gray.
It feels like it just rained or it's about to rain constantly, that kind of bone-chilling dampness.
So definitely not a vacation spot. It sounds like the air itself is heavy.
It is. It smells like diesel fumes and wet wool and stale frying oil. But here's the most important part of the atmosphere. It is frantic.
Frantic, not just depressing.
Not at all. The characters we're going to talk about, Rosetta and Igor, are constantly moving. They are running, they are fighting, they are hustling. But, and this is the absolute key, they aren't getting anywhere.
They're spinning their wheels.
In the mud. It is a world of pure survival. The good life isn't something they live. It's something they watch from a distance, like a TV show playing in a shop window they can't afford to enter.
Okay, I have the visual. Gray skies, mud, and people running on a treadmill that's slowly sinking into the ground. That's a good place to start. Let's move into phase 1. The existential friction. What is the why now of this text? Why does a text about 90s Belgium matter to us right here in the 2020s?
The friction point here is the exhaustion of what Berlant calls aspirational normativity.
Aspirational normativity. Okay, that's a dense phrase. Let's unpack that. It sounds like just wanting to be normal, which doesn't sound very revolutionary or even that difficult for most people.
And that's the trick. That is exactly where the friction lives. We usually think of normal as the baseline. It's the boring default setting you start from.
Right. It's what you are if you're not special. You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you pay your bills.
And we are conditioned by our entire culture, by movies, by advertising, by social media, to want to transcend the normal. We want to be extraordinary.
You want to be the main character.
You want to be rich, famous, exceptional. The whole narrative is about breaking out of the mundane.
Right. Nobody dreams of being perfectly average. We dream of being the outlier.
But Berlant flips this completely upside down. She argues that for the economic underclass, and she uses the character Rosetta as the prime example, normalcy has become a utopia.
A utopia, not a baseline.
A desperate, nearly impossible fantasy. The crisis of the modern era isn't that we can't all be rich, it's that most of us can't even be normal anymore.
So the friction comes from the realization that the bare minimum, a job, a friend, a roof over your head that isn't leaking, that's now an achievement on par with winning the lottery for a huge portion of the population.
Precisely. And let's look at Rosetta. She's a young woman, maybe late teens, living in a trailer park with her alcoholic mother. Rosetta isn't fighting to be a pop star. She isn't fighting for a mansion.
What is she fighting for?
She is fighting, physically fighting with her fists and teeth to secure a rut.
A rut. That's such a powerful word choice because usually we want to get out of a rut. We read self-help books on how to escape ruts. We hire life coaches to pull us out of them.
Not here. In this economic landscape, the rut is the only thing that keeps you from falling into the cracks.
The rut versus the cracks.
Think about the physical imagery of that. A rut is a groove in the road. It might be muddy, it might be deep, but if you are in a rut, you are on the road. You are contained. You're moving in a direction, even if it's a boring one.
You have traction. You exist within the system.
Exactly. The rut represents a repetitive, probably exploitative, but reliable existence. The cracks represent total oblivion.
What does that mean, oblivion?
Falling out of the system entirely. Homelessness, social erasure, maybe even death. If you were in a rut, you are located. You are somewhere. If you are in the cracks, you are nowhere. You are a ghost.
That reframing it's powerful. It explains so much about why people hold on to jobs they hate, why they stay in relationships that are draining.
Because the job is a rut and the rut is safe. The alternative is the abyss.
There is a specific scene in the film Rosetta that Berlant focuses on, and honestly, it's just haunting. It's what she calls the catechism scene.
Oh, it's brutal.
Let's break this scene down. Where is she? What's happening?
Rosetta is in bed. It's dark. She's just had a rare night where she actually hung out with a guy, Riquet. He works at a waffle stand. They tried to dance. They tried to be normal teenagers. It was awkward. It was clumsy, but it happened.
A moment of normalcy.
A tiny, fragile moment. And now she's trying to sleep, and she whispers this mantra to herself.
It's a litany, and I want to read it exactly as Berlant describes it. She says, "Your name is Rosetta. My name is Rosetta. You found a job. I found a job. You have a friend. I've got a friend. You have a normal life. I have a normal life. You won't fall through the cracks. I won't fall through the cracks. Good night. Good night."
Just pause on that for a second. Let that sink in.
It chills me every time I read it. Because it sounds like a prayer, but she's not praying to God. She's praying to, what? Society. Or just to herself.
She is praying for the bare minimum of social recognition. She is trying to convince herself that she exists. Berlant points out that this isn't a celebration. This isn't a moment of gratitude. It's a defense mechanism.
She's building a wall of words around herself.
She is hoarding this tiny moment of normalcy in a private space because her public life is pure chaos. She's trying to stabilize her reality with language. She is fact-checking her own existence.
You found a job. You have a friend. It's like she's checking off boxes on a form to prove she's a human being. See? I match the description of a person. I am valid.
And you have to consider the context. The job she's referring to. It's likely a low-paying, off-the-books position, making waffles or mending clothes. It's unstable. It's grueling. It pays almost nothing.
But to her, it's everything.
To her, that exploitation is a privilege. It's the anchor in the storm.
This brings us to the concept of the agonist. If we are looking for the enemy in this story, who or what is it? Because usually in a story about the poor working class, the enemy is the greedy boss, or the capitalist system, or the slumlord.
And look, those elements are there, certainly. The landlord's awful, the bosses are indifferent. But Berlant identifies the default setting, or the common sense lie, as the real antagonist here.
And what's the lie?
The lie is that normativity is something we should take for granted, that it's boring. The agonist is the fragility of that normativity itself.
The enemy is the cracks.
Yes. The enemy isn't a specific person with a top hat and a monocle. It's the constant ambient threat of dissolution. Rosetta views exploitation not as something to resist, but as something to aspire to.
That is a brutal sentence. Can you say that again?
She views exploitation not as something to resist, but as something to aspire to. To be exploited means someone needs you. To be exploited is to belong.
Wow. It just completely reframes how we think about things like labor rights or dignity at work. We usually think dignity comes from not being used. We think dignity is autonomy, freedom.
But Rosetta is fighting security guards, biting and scratching them, just to keep a job that probably pays peanuts and has no benefits.
Why? What is she getting out of it?
Because without that job, she loses her holding environment. This is a crucial psychological concept Berlant uses. We all need a holding environment, a routine, a set of expectations, a place where we fit.
It's like psychological gravity.
That's a perfect way to put it. Without it, we don't just become unemployed, we become psychically unmoored. We feel like we're going to dissolve into space.
So the stakes here, if we ignore this perspective, if we just look at Rosetta and say, oh, she should strive for better, or why doesn't she realize she's being used, we miss the entire point.
We completely fail to understand the cost to the soul. If you don't understand that the rut is a lifeline, you can't understand why people betray one another for crumbs. You can't understand the violence of survival.
You end up judging them from a place of comfort.
Exactly. You look at them with judgment instead of understanding the sheer, bone-deep terror that's driving them.
And there is a betrayal in the film, right? A major one. Rosetta does something pretty unforgivable by normal moral standards.
She does. It's really hard to watch. She betrays her only friend, Riquet, the waffle guy.
The one she danced with.
The one who helped her, who gave her food, who treated her like a human being. But Riquet falls into the water. Literally, he falls into that muddy pond we talked about. And she hesitates to save him. She just watches him struggle.
She considers letting him drown.
She considers it.
Yeah.
Now, she does save him eventually. But later, she actually rats him out to their boss to steal his job. She tells the boss Riquet is running a little scam on the side just so she can take his place at the waffle stand.
She steals her only friend's job. I mean, that's the classic crabs in a bucket mentality, but Berlant seems to be saying it's more than just selfishness. It's not just, I want money.
It's pure survival logic.
Yeah.
For Rosetta, the job is the normal life. The friend is a luxury. The friend is an accessory to the normal life.
So when she has to choose.
If she has to choose between the friend, who offers emotional warmth but no stability, and the job, which offers the structure that keeps her from falling through the cracks, she chooses the structure every time. She chooses the rut.
It's a cold, hard calculation. I can live without a friend. I cannot live without a placement in the world.
Exactly. And it's worth noting, too, and this is kind of amazing, that this film, Rosetta, actually changed the real world. It wasn't just some art house movie that critics liked and then forgot about.
Really? How so? It had a political impact.
A direct one. In Belgium, after the film came out and won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, it sparked this massive cultural conversation. The government passed a law called the Rosetta Plan.
The Rosetta Plan, what did it do?
It was a youth employment law. It was designed to force businesses to hire a certain quota of young workers. It was a direct response to the precarity the film depicted. It's a rare instance where art didn't just reflect the crisis. It forced the state to acknowledge it.
But even that law is almost ironic, isn't it? Based on everything we've just said, it guarantees the rut.
Precisely.
It guarantees the right to be exploited so you don't disappear. It doesn't solve the poverty. It just institutionalizes the struggle. It makes the treadmill a permanent fixture.
Exactly. It codifies the very thing Berlant is analyzing. That citizenship is now defined by the ability to labor, even if that labor is meaningless or degrading. It says, we will ensure you have a place on the treadmill. It acknowledges that without the treadmill, you are nothing.
That is heavy, but it perfectly sets up the mechanical logic of this world. Let's shift gears to phase 2, the conceptual blueprint. We've talked about the why and the friction. Now let's look at the logic, the internal machinery of this world.
Okay, and to do that, we need to pivot to the other film, La Promesse, and the character of Igor, to really understand the mechanics of this.
All right, introduce us to Igor. He's a teenager, right?
Igor's about 15, and his dad, Roger, is, well, he's a piece of work. Roger is a slumlord. He smuggles migrants into Belgium. He rents them these terrible, unsafe apartments, exploits their labor to build his own house, and acts as this petty tyrant over their lives.
So the father is the clear villain here.
In a traditional sense, yes. But for Igor, Roger is everything. Igor's his apprentice. He helps his dad run these scams. He steals wallets. He fixes go-karts. He collects rent. He is completely enmeshed in his father's corrupt, exploitative world.
So the pivot point here, the big flip in perspective that Berlant asks of us, is about how we define the good life. Usually we think of the good life as a destination, you know, a big house, a nice car, happiness, the American dream stuff.
Right. We think of it as a place of pleasure. We think, if I get the good life, I will be happy. But Berlant argues these characters don't want the materiality of a better life in that traditional sense. They aren't trying to become rich to buy yachts or drink champagne.
So what do they want?
They want the feeling of a world that is reliable. They want the good life as a defense against anxiety.
So it's not about I want to be happy. It's
Yeah.
I want to stop panicking.
Yes. It's the desire for a world that doesn't need to be constantly reinvented every single morning.
Hmm.
Look at Igor. He works for his father. The work is illegal. It's immoral. At one point, they are burying a body in concrete, literally covering up the death of an African migrant who fell from some shoddy scaffolding.
It's horrific.
It's absolutely horrific. But Igor clings to the work.
Why? Why would anyone stay in that horror?
Because it provides a purpose. It provides a father-son bond. It provides a structure. As Berlant writes, and this is such a key phrase, the benefits of bad work are soul-making, not soul-killing in this specific context.
Soul-making. That's a provocative way to put it. So the bad work makes the soul because it gives the soul a shape.
Yes, exactly. Without the work, Igor's soul is just a puddle on the floor. The work gives him an identity. I am Roger's son. I am the fixer. I am capable.
He matters within that corrupt system.
Exactly. If he leaves the criminal enterprise, he becomes just another kid with no future, no skills, no identity. Inside the enterprise, he's a lieutenant. He matters.
And this leads us to the governing law of this universe. If this were a physics engine in a video game, what is the one rule that determines gravity and everything else?
The rule is the law of proximity.
Explain that, the law of proximity.
In a functioning economy, or at least the one we are told exists, you strive to own the good life. You buy the house, you earn the degree, you put your name on the deed, ownership is the goal.
Right, you accumulate assets.
But in the economy of cruel optimism, ownership is off the table. It's impossible. You don't have the capital, cultural, or financial, so the goal shifts. You don't need to own the good life. You just need to stand close enough to it, be proximate to it, to feel its warmth.
So you're warming your hands by someone else's fire.
Or you're standing next to the person who has the fire. You are borrowing the vibe of normalcy. You are scavenging the aesthetic of stability. You're trying to get it on you like secondhand smoke.
There is a specific detail in La Promesse that perfectly illustrates this. And I think this might be one of the strangest and most poignant scenes I've ever heard described. It's the scene with the whiteout.
Yes. This scene is the key to the whole movie, to the whole concept.
Set it up for us.
Okay, so Igor is in his dad's grimy office. He's forging documents for the migrants. He's using whiteout, correction fluid, liquid paper, to erase names on passports or whatever. It's a tool of erasure.
Okay, so he's using it for its intended, if illegal, purpose. And then he sees a photo.
He sees a photo of Asita. Asita is the African woman whose husband just died because of Roger's negligence, the body they buried in the concrete. Igor feels this immense guilt, but he's also fascinated by her. In the photo, Asita has this beautiful, radiant smile. Very white teeth.
She looks happy. She looks healthy. She looks like she already has the good life.
Yes, she embodies that image. So Igor looks at her photo. He sees that radiance. Then he looks in the mirror at his own teeth. And his teeth are probably not great. He's a working-class kid, smokes cigarettes, bad diet. And then he does something just bizarre.
He takes the whiteout brush.
And he paints his own teeth white.
He paints his teeth with office supplies. I mean, it's grotesque. It's toxic.
It's so toxic, but it's also so profoundly childlike. It is a perfect moment of proximity. He is mimicking whiteness. He's mimicking health. He is mimicking the smile of the good life. He isn't actually fixing his teeth. He isn't actually becoming healthier.
He's just applying a cosmetic layer.
He is applying a cosmetic layer to feel, for a split second, like he fits the image of a successful person.
It's a performance of an interruption without risk, as the text says. He's playing, but it's a desperate kind of play. It reminds me of the video game analogy Berlant uses. If this were a game, the goal isn't winning.
No, absolutely not. The goal is not stopping. It is what Berlant calls survival time. You are treading water. If you stop moving your arms and legs, you drown. If you keep moving, you stay in exactly the same spot. But staying in the spot is the victory.
Just not drowning is the win.
Igor whitening his teeth isn't a strategy to win the game. It's a way to feel like a player for a few more seconds before the game reloads.
That is the definition of the impasse, which we'll get to. But this idea of proximity, it explains so much about modern consumer culture, too, doesn't it? We see this everywhere.
Everywhere.
Buying the knockoff handbag, going to the open house for a home you could never afford just to walk around in it for an afternoon.
Precisely. It's dupe culture. Why do people buy dupes? It's not just to fool other people. It's to fool themselves, to feel the proximity to the luxury. You are scavenging for the feeling of belonging. Igor and Rosetta are scavengers.
That's the word she uses.
They are building a worldview out of scraps. They take the debris of the economy, a fake ID, a waffle iron, a bottle of whiteout, and they try to build a home out of it.
It's heartbreaking because we know the whiteout will wash off. It probably tastes disgusting. It's probably poisoning him. But for that one moment in the mirror, he smiles and he matches the picture.
And that match is the only satisfaction available to him.
Okay. Let's move to phase 3, the lexicon of the absurd. We need to arm the listener with the vocabulary to spot this stuff in the wild. We have 3 terms that are absolutely essential to understanding Berlant. The first one is the title of the book itself, cruel optimism.
Right, so the street-level translation, cruel optimism is when the thing you love is actually the thing that's killing you, but you can't let go because you have nothing else.
It's the toxic relationship you can't leave because being alone feels worse than being miserable.
Yes, but apply that logic to systems. It's loving the idea of meritocracy, even when you see the system is rigged against you. It's Rosetta loving the idea of a normal job, even though the job is destroying her body and her friendships.
The lightning strike quote for this is perfect. The route is a rut. She chooses the rut, the impasse.
The optimism is cruel because the object of your desire, the job, the normalcy, the fantasy of the good life, is actually the obstacle to your flourishing. But you have to be optimistic about it because it's the only thing promising you stability.
Yes, a double bind.
A complete double bind. The thing that holds you together is the thing that wears you down. If you let go, you fall apart. If you hold on, you bleed out slowly.
That is a perfect description of burnout. You hold on until you bleed out because letting go feels like dying.
Exactly. Okay, term number 2, crisis ordinariness.
Crisis ordinariness.
Street-level translation for this one. When the world is on fire, but you're just worried about making dinner. The apocalypse is a Tuesday.
We see this all the time now. Oh, there's a historic flood downtown. Okay, but I still have a Zoom call at 2 p.m.
Oh, there's a global pandemic. I should probably learn how to bake some sourdough bread.
Right. The normalization of chaos.
Berlant cites Achille Mbembe here. The quote is something like, "Crisis is not an event, it is the atmosphere." We tend to think of crisis as a spike on a graph. Something bad happens, an earthquake, a stock market crash. Then it ends, and we go back to normal.
But for Rosetta and Igor, the crisis is the air they breathe. It never ends. There is no after the crisis. There is only during.
And the detail from the text that just nails this concept is the name of the trailer park.
The Grand Canyon.
Rosetta lives in a muddy, miserable, cramped trailer park called the Grand Canyon.
Think about the audacity of that name.
It's incredible. It is named after a place of sublime, almost terrifying natural wonder, a place of vastness, a place you go on vacation, a place of American majesty.
But their reality is cramped and dirty and small and filled with despair. Rosetta's mother is turning trips for booze in this trailer. It is a site of constant degradation.
But they call it the Grand Canyon. And that gap, that chasm between the aspirational name and the miserable reality is the crisis ordinariness. They live inside that irony every single day.
They've domesticated the horror.
They have. They don't wake up and scream, "Oh my God, I live in a depressing dump." They wake up and say, "I'm at the Grand Canyon." It becomes mundane. Normal.
It reminds me of those luxury apartment complexes named the Sanctuary or the Oasis. They're built right next to a 6-lane highway.
Exactly. The name promises a utopia that the reality explicitly denies.
And the final term, term number 3, the impasse.
Street-level translation. Treading water. You aren't moving forward, but you're working exhaustingly hard just to stay in the same spot.
The quote for this one is, "A life dedicated to moving toward the good life's normative utopian zone, but actually stuck in what we might call survival time."
Berlant contrasts this with the sitcom. In a situation comedy, things always reset to normal at the end of the episode. The world is elastic. It bounces back.
Right, Homer Simpson can blow up the power plant, but he's back at his station next week. No real consequences.
In Friends, no matter what drama happens, they're back in the coffee shop, safe and sound. The money problems magically disappear. The conflicts vanish. That amazing apartment is always rent-controlled.
The status quo is God.
Exactly. But Berlant calls the genre of these films, and by extension these lives, situation tragedy.
Situation tragedy. That's brilliant.
In a situation tragedy, people express their flaws episodically, over and over again, without learning or changing. It's the impasse. You make the same mistake. You trust the wrong person. You take the bad job. You hurt the person you love.
And it's not because you're evil or stupid.
It's because you are stuck in a loop of survival. There is no character arc. There's only repetition. The situation just repeats, maybe with slightly different details.
You aren't building a narrative for your life. You're just piling up days. It's time without history.
That is the essence of the impasse. It is time without development. You are exerting maximum effort for zero displacement.
Okay, we have the friction, the logic, and the vocabulary. Now, phase 4, the intellectual aftershock. This is where we see the payoff of thinking this way.
Right. And to do that, we need to address the conflict Berlant has with some other major thinkers, specifically Judith Butler and Lillian Rubin.
Because usually when we talk about people loving authority or loving the systems that oppress them, we go to Butler. That's the go-to explanation.
Butler's view, to put it very broadly, is that we love authority because we are conditioned from birth to be infantile. We're used to dependency from childhood.
Yeah.
We submit to the law because we submitted to our parents.
So it's a psychological habit of submission. We want the state or the boss to be our mommy or daddy.
In a reductive sense, yes. We fear losing the love of the parent figure, the authority, so we obey. But Berlant pushes back on this hard. She says, look at Rosetta. Look at Igor.
They are not passive.
These are not passive, submissive infants. They are not sitting around sucking their thumbs waiting for the government to save them or for the boss to pat them on the head.
No, they are fighting. Rosetta is literally, physically fighting security guards. Igor is running scams. He's a criminal apprentice. They are hyperactive. They are aggressive.
Berlant argues they are scavengers. They aren't submissive. She calls them aggressively incoherent. They're trying to force the world to hug them back.
It's not about being a good child who obeys.
It's about being a feral animal trying to survive. They are cobbling together a sense of belonging out of trash and scraps.
It's a much more active and frankly more violent process than just submission. It's an active attempt to build a life inside a wreckage.
And a scavenger finds value where others see waste. They're trying to extract normalcy from a situation that has none to offer. It is a creative act, even if it's a doomed one.
Which brings us to the hallucination, the visceral analogy that brings us all home for me.
The muddy pond. This scene in Rosetta it's just difficult to watch. It is the visual summary of the entire book, of the entire concept.
Set the scene for us.
So Rosetta's mother is an alcoholic, and Rosetta is trying to force her to get sober. She's bargaining with her. She says, Mom, if you stop drinking, I'll buy you a sewing machine. You can make clothes. We can have a business.
Which is so heartbreaking. She is trying to solve a deep addiction problem with a business plan.
She is trying to use the logic of the market exchange, productivity, a sewing machine, to fix a deep emotional and psychological wound. She thinks if she could just make her mother productive, the mother will be cured.
Of course the mother doesn't want to hear it. She just wants to drink.
So she runs away. Rosetta chases her through the trailer park, and the mother pushes Rosetta into that muddy pond, that stagnant, cold, dirty pond.
Rosetta falls in.
She falls in. Her heavy work boots fill with water. She's wearing a heavy coat. She is stuck. The mud is like quicksand. It just sucks her in. She is drowning.
And she doesn't scream.
She doesn't scream. She struggles silently. And Riquet is nearby, riding his moped in circles, but she doesn't call out to him, not right away. She tries to get herself out first.
And the analogy here is that modern life is that pond.
We are Rosetta. We are treading water in the mud. But here's the cruel optimism part, the hallucination. Instead of screaming for help or trying to get out, we bargain with the mud. We promise to buy the mud a sewing machine if it just lets us float for 5 more minutes.
We mistake not drowning for swimming.
Yes.
You think if we can just stay afloat, if we can just keep our head above the surface, that counts as a life?
That is the hallucination. We think that if we just tread water hard enough, eventually the pond will turn into a swimming pool. But it's just mud, and the boots are getting heavier with every kick.
That is devastating. But it feels so true, and it leads perfectly into our viral hooks. If we had to summarize this whole deep dive for a scroll-stopping social media post, what are we saying?
Okay, hook number 1. Your desire for a normal life is the most dangerous addiction you have.
Oof. Because normal doesn't exist anymore for most people, but we kill ourselves trying to fake it. We burn out chasing a ghost.
Hook number 2. Why you keep loving the job that treats you like garbage. The psychology of the rut.
Because the rut feels safer than the open road. The known misery feels safer than the unknown abyss.
And hook number 3. Stop trying to make it. In this economy, just Staying in the game is a radical act of violence.
That last one really lands for me. Just staying in the game is an act of violence against others and against yourself. It explains why everyone is so exhausted all the time.
We are fighting a war just to stand still. We are Rosetta fighting the security guard just to keep the waffle job.
And this brings us to the parting shot, the final concept that Berlant leaves us with, the normativity hangover.
Right, both of these films, Rosetta and La Promesse, and very abruptly, just cut to black.
No resolution.
None. Rosetta collapses. She's exhausted physically and emotionally. Riquet, the friend she betrayed, comes to help her, maybe. We don't know. He just circles her on his noisy moped. She's crying. And then, cut to black.
And in La Promesse,
Igor and Isita turn the father in to the authorities. They walk away from the scams. But they have no money. They have no plan. They are just walking into this gray, empty landscape. Into nothingness. Cut to black.
there is no, and they lived happily ever after. There is no, and then they started a revolution and fixed everything. There is no solution offered.
They just stop. And Berlant argues that because the characters are denied their happy ending, we, the audience, are left holding the bag.
We become the holders of the promise.
We leave the theater or we finish reading the book, and we are burdened with the optimism they couldn't achieve. We feel the residue of their optimism. We want them to be okay so badly that it physically hurts. We crave the closure for them.
That's the hangover. We get drunk on the hope that things will work out for them, and then the film just cuts us off cold. So we carry that headache out into the street. We take their anxiety home with us.
And the final unspoken question is, what do we do with that feeling? Do we just go back to our own ruts? Do we go back to our own cosmetic whiteout and our own muddy ponds? Or do we recognize that our own desire for normalcy is just as fragile, just as fraught as theirs?
It forces us to look at our own lives. Are we Rosetta? Are we whispering to ourselves at night, you have a job, you have a friend, you won't fall through the cracks? Is that our prayer?
And if you have ever said that to yourself, or some version of it, then you are living in the zone of cruel optimism. You are bargaining with the mud.
This has been a heavy one, a really heavy one, but I think it's a necessary one. We aren't just talking about movies from the 90s. We are talking about the architecture of our own survival.
We're talking about the stories we tell ourselves to get through the day.
And we're talking about why we keep treading water in the mud. And maybe, just maybe, realizing it's mud is the first step to finally trying to climb out.
You have to see the pond for what it is.
So here is the final call to action for you listening right now. Look at your own ruts. Identify the things you're holding on to just because they feel normal, even if they are quietly hurting you. Ask yourself, is this a foundation or is it just the mud?
Don't mistake the impasse for the road.